I'm really honest, myself and a lot of people, maybe especially men, would really struggle with what to say to someone who has lost a baby and is struggling with grief.
Sometimes just not assuming and actually questioning is really helpful.
I'm like a feeler, and I can kind of take on other people's feelings and emotions. I felt awkward for other people feeling awkward for me.
I don't just run to God when I feel like it. I do it when I don't feel like it.
Hey, it's Dan and Charlie here, and this is the Young Cubs Parenting Podcast. We're parents of 2 little boys, figuring it out as we go, usually somewhere between the school run and the tube to work.
We're not experts by any means. We're just a couple of parents doing our best on Struggle Street, but we have loved every minute of it, and we want to get better at it. So we'll be talking to some good friends about parenting, faith, life, and the culture we're raising our kids in.
In every episode, we're going to be having honest conversations with people who've walked this path before or are walking it right now, sharing real stories, honest reflections, and the kind of wisdom you only get from doing the parenting thing day in and day out.
So whether you're in the chaos, the calm, or somewhere in between, join us on the journey. Subscribe to the Young Cubs channels, and remember, no perfect parents allowed.
Hey guys, and welcome to another episode of the Young Cubs Parenting Podcast. My name is Charlie, this is my husband Dan, and we've got a really special episode in store for you today because we have a beautiful woman with us today who has an amazing story of finding hope through heartbreak. Tia Magno Wallen, it's so great to have you with us today. We're so excited just for what you've got to share because we really know it's going to help and bless people today. Tia, you walked through the unimaginable when you lost your daughter. But out of that, I love it because you have a beautiful story of hope and healing. And you even started your ministry, Faith in Heaven, which is beautiful because it supports families going through similar things that you did, grief and loss and heartbreak. And so we're really looking forward just to hearing a bit about your story and unpacking that today. And I'm really hoping that this is an episode that not just encourages those that are maybe in a similar situation, experiencing loss and heartbreak themselves, but those that maybe are in the waiting season or those who have a friend or a family member going through something similar, like just equipping them with ways that they can respond and support in those kind of seasons. And so looking forward to just hearing a bit more about your story today and grateful for your kind of vulnerability and opening up. Well, Tia, I would love just to start the conversation by asking if you'd be comfortable just to share a bit about your story and I guess how baby loss has become a part of that, you know, with doing what you do for a living, all that kind of stuff. We'd just love to hear a bit more about your story.
Sure. Firstly, thank you guys. I think this is such an important topic that is such a taboo topic that nobody likes to talk about. Everyone wants to talk about the joys, but nobody likes to talk about the sad side that can come with loss as well. So thank you guys for having me, because so many things get talked about in the world, but nothing that's as meaningful, I think, as a topic like this. So I appreciate that. Loss. I got married in 2016. When we got married, me and my husband both said we were not going to use the word trying. We didn't like that word. So we never told people we were trying. We weren't telling ourselves we were trying. Okay. We were just like, we're married. We'll just see how that goes. So I'm already a mum. My son is 19. So there's quite a gap going on there. So we knew that we didn't want to wait around for anything. So we just kind of left it in God's hands, so to speak. And we did experience a loss in 2017 and a loss in 2018. They were both early losses. And that's how we began the journey. But if I'm honest, that's not when the journey of hope and healing began, because we were quite in denial in those times. But 2020, we fell pregnant again, which, you know, you could call it our rainbow baby. And we lost that pregnancy when we were probably just about halfway through, 4.5, nearly 5 months pregnant. So that's when the real journey of loss, grief, ministry, kind of everything just sparked from there. And since then, it's been an ongoing journey of loss and trying to wait and season loss. And it's kind of where we're at today as well.
And throughout that, like, what's helped you in those seasons of loss? Like, how have you processed that? What's that look like for you?
I think ministry first. It was, I wouldn't call it strange because that's how God works, but with our first 2 early losses, we were so in denial that we had coping mechanisms that convinced ourselves it was all okay. Like, oh, we're not trying, or maybe we're not ready right now. Maybe God just wants us to focus on our son at the moment. maybe because he's going through these tough stages. So we were in all these in denials that it's not meant to happen and it's probably part of God's plan. So we didn't even consider any emotions that came with loss. And it was just too painful to talk about it. So we just acted like it didn't exist. But I think when it came to our daughter Faith, it was very, sometimes you say supernatural and it can just sound a bit extreme, but it was very supernatural because the whole process, we just stayed God focused. And it was almost like we knew it wasn't us because we were like, how are we in this situation? How are we finding out there's no heartbeat? How are we in the hospital, in a labor ward, in a birthing suite, delivering this baby? But for somehow we've got praise and worship playing in the background. It was very staying focused on God, even though we didn't feel like it. So we just kind of focused on the word. We kept praying even though we didn't feel like praying. We kept reading the Bible even though we didn't feel like reading the Bible. We kept singing even though we didn't feel like singing. So when I say ministry, it really is. It was reaching out to our pastors. It was having people praying for us. And that was the beginning stage. We hadn't experienced any other emotion for the first couple of months, I think, of losing Faith. Even when we had her funeral, everything was still very much God is just with us. So we didn't cry often, even though there were tears. It wasn't the focus. Everyone who came to visit us, we were very much like, but God is seeing us through. And I feel like that was our survival mode. And it was only after about 6-7 months going into a year that we started to experience all the other emotions that came with it. But initially it was just keeping focused on our faith, even though that was hard. It was letting people support us. Me and my husband are very independent people. We don't accept help. We're the helpers.
Yeah.
If someone's suffering, we go to them. And then all of a sudden, we're in this season where our church have food rotas going on. We have food being delivered 2-3 times a day at the door from people from our church. We had people picking up our laundry, people buying birthday cakes for our son because we weren't in the right headspace to be doing those things. So I think support was another coping mechanism, letting our guards down, letting ourselves be vulnerable and actually let people come in and help. Because you pray and you think, well, where's the help, Lord? And then meanwhile, you're rejecting people's help and you're robbing other people of their blessing as well as your own. So ministry, and I think taking and receiving the support from people.
So when you say, it sounds like you're saying the grief hit harder later on.
Yes.
I guess I'd love to know, like, grief hits everyone very differently. What differences did you see between you and your husband's grief? Like, what did that look like? And how did you handle, maybe if there were differences between how you both grieved, how did you handle that? What
That's
did that
quite
look like?
interesting because it flips, if that makes sense. So in the beginning, when we had first lost Faith, my husband was doing all the phone calls, answering all the text messages to people, whilst I was just quietly in my own little bubble of just healing. He was the one that when people were coming to the door, answering the door, and then me realizing that he's doing all of that, but that means he's having all the conversations whilst I'm in the house. He's the one receiving the food, receiving all of the condolences. And I don't think at the time I realized the impact of that. I was just very much like, he's been so great, not realizing he's reliving the conversations over and over and over and over. So at first he was like the solid rock, the pillar, and I was a bit more fragile. And I think we actually had a friend at the time that came to visit us, and she was like, you guys just seem so positive. But she had worked in the gynecology industry for a very long time, so she knew the real deal, that we were going to have other emotions. And she sat us and said, I'm just going to let you know, you're going to experience anger, frustration, sadness. And we were like, I don't think so. Like, God is really good. He's really seeing us through this season of healing and, we're really well. But we did experience all those. I dealt with it by talking. So I had therapy, I had Christian counselling, had a really wonderful therapist who dealt with grief and loss, and she was wonderful. And all of that therapy came by pointing me to the word as well. I spoke more to my friends about it. I spoke about it online. I was talking about it. My husband was more, I want this ministry to happen and I want to be part of making it happen, but talking is not something that I'm comfortable doing. So I realized that he grieved more by being my support system and being there for me to help me heal, whilst I was kind of just helping myself heal, and he was just kind of healing by himself, I guess. Even though we prayed together and we comforted each other, it took me quite a long time to realise the weight that he was carrying. And I remember thinking, wow, he's dealt with it by being a man, cracking on, getting on with it, keeping everybody updated, going out to work, being extra busy, and me thinking, like, oh, is life just moving forward for him? But actually that was his way of coping. So I dealt with it by kind of not sitting in it, but embracing the process and making it as an opportunity. And he dealt with it by, okay, I need to be the strong one here so she can be doing what she's doing. So we dealt with it quite opposite. I was the talker, he was the supporter, and that was his way of dealing with it, and probably still is till this day. You know? But
Me and Dan, 4 years ago, we had an ectopic pregnancy and we lost the baby. And I remember in that kind of, when it happened for us, feeling not a pressure. No one put the pressure on me to be okay. I think I put it on myself. I kind of felt we were in leadership positions, and a bit like you were saying, I feel like we're the kind of quite upbeat, positive people. We love helping and supporting and encouraging others. And I definitely feel like, looking back, I probably didn't take much opportunity to kind of maybe grieve, or I feel like the whole process for me was very quick. And then we were like back to life, back to reality. Obviously I had surgery that kind of limited me physically, but I think I put pressure on myself to be okay maybe quicker than I should have. Do you think that, or have you ever felt this pressure either from yourself or others, actually, which I do think some people experience, to be okay after this when perhaps it's like a longer process?
Yeah, definitely. And also thank you for sharing that with me, because I think people forget that when it comes to ectopic, it's more than just a loss. It's a physical burden as well, and a heavy weight to carry, because your body's also going through, as a woman, actual surgery and your organs being affected by it. So I think I've had loads of conversation with friends who've had that, and they're like, they feel like they can't grieve the same way, because people think, oh, ectopic, but it's different. And then you get treated like it's a different category, which I've had so many conversations with women who have just been like, Tia, am I okay to grieve? Am I okay to feel like it's the same loss as this? I'm like, absolutely. It's a baby, it's a life. And I think that pressure of just having to crack on is everywhere. Work, ministry, ourselves as women, we don't want to be weak, even though the reality of it is, how are you not weak when you've just gone through something like that? Then there's the pressure of family and friends who don't know what it feels like. So they say things like, oh, you just got to get on with it, or it's not the end of the world, or people say really unhelpful things. You already
have, at least you've already got one.
At least you've already had one.
You've already got one blessing. Yeah.
And then you think, oh, so now you don't think that's hard, that I have to... I shared something online that talks about secondary loss, where you have all this grief, and then you have the guilt because you're not being able to be a good parent to the child that you already have, because now you're carrying this guilt of grieving. So that's another pressure. I have to get on with it because it's not fair and you suppress your grief because you're worried about your other child. Like my son, he witnessed it all. He's seen everything from being rushed into hospitals to going through the, rejoicing that we're having a baby, to then realizing he's not going to be a sibling. So I felt the biggest pressure of, I don't want to disappoint the son that I already have, but I'm also grieving. And then from a faith perspective, it's I have to get back on top of things now, because people are depending on me and people are coming to me for support. So, and even though they know that I've endured this loss, people are still bringing their problems to me. So maybe that means I just need to get on with it, because other people don't seem to be giving me a time frame. But I feel that's like the negative side of it. But there's also those one or two people that sit with you through all of it and will ask you every now and then. And I think it's easy to focus on the people that pressure you and kind of make you feel like you have to get on with it. But then on the other side, you have these wonderful, even if it's one person, who every now and then, or every anniversary, or every time it comes that time of year, will check in and will ask how you're doing. And you think, oh, I'm suffocating because everything here is making me feel like I have to move on. But praise God, I have this saving grace with this one person who messages me every time, every year, sometimes randomly, just to say, how are you feeling? Because I know things must still be hard for you. And you think, praise God for those people. But there is a huge pressure, I think, one from society, because who wants to talk about baby loss? But it's okay to talk about if you lose a mother, or if you lose a sister, or if you lose if you lose a cousin or a friend. Everybody wants to share about that. But when it comes to baby loss, it's like, you can have another one, okay? And it's something that I always say publicly, which people laugh when I say it, but I'm like, but it's the truth. When you tell me that I can always have another one, what if I turn around and said, but it's okay, there's loads of mother figures out there. You can always find yourself another mother. Oh, but, there's, time's a healer. And it's like, okay, so in 5 years' time, are you not going to remember your mother or your sibling ever again? Or why is time meant to be a healer just because it's baby loss? So, and I do think it's not because people don't have empathy or that people don't have nice hearts. People just don't know. When we lost our daughter, Faith, I feel like God really showed me that grief is okay. And just because you're a believer doesn't mean you can't be sad, doesn't mean you can't cry, doesn't mean you can't feel. You only got to open up the Bible. You've got to read the book of Psalms to think, okay, well, David lamented, Hannah lamented. Why can't I lament? And I think the moment I accepted that, I don't care about the pressure. Now I don't care if people don't see me anymore. I've gone from being the person that checks in and drives to everybody's houses, whether it's an hour away, to now I just say, no, I can't be there because I'm going through what I'm going through. I'm impacted, and maybe coming to that baby shower might be painful for me, or maybe going to that birthday party where once upon a time I would have just suppressed it all, turned up to all these places and then gone home and cried for hours and hours and, to myself, where now I'm like, God has said it's okay to have boundaries. And that's, I think, how I deal with pressure now, knowing that's not about what people are doing or saying. It's about how God tells us we can heal, and it's okay to heal the healthy way without feeling the pressure.
So good. Thank you just for sharing that. I feel like I wish I'd known all of that you just said about 5 years ago. Just because I've got lots of friends who have kind of lost babies, and I think I've always struggled knowing what to say when someone's dealing with grief. Didn't really know what to say to you when you were dealing with it. Even today, our cameraman is an amazing guy called Henry, him and his wife Hannah. They lost a baby, and I'd never, we didn't know these guys, but I knew they lost a baby, and so we wanted to reach out to them and just say, thinking of you, praying for you. And then I was looking for a videographer for this podcast, and someone's like, you should get Henry involved. So I give him a text, I just say, hey mate, are you up for it? I send him the whole thing, and then I realised I've just invited him to come and be the videographer on this podcast, and I haven't even acknowledged that he's lost the baby. And in the moment I was like, that's not me, I never do that. So I voice note him, but literally I recorded about 10 voice notes, but just trying to say the right thing in the right way. And I think, if I'm really honest, myself and a lot of people, maybe especially men, would really struggle with what to say to someone who has lost a baby and is struggling with grief. Is there anything that you would say to just help us in this area?
I have beautiful examples in my life as well. I've got probably these 3 beautiful women of God in my life. 2 has no experience in loss at all, but they have so graciously asked me questions like, Tia, how can I support you? Not let me know if I can support you, it's how can I support you? Or I was going to do this, but I don't know if that's going to be sensitive for you. And sometimes just not assuming and actually questioning is really helpful. Like having my friends go, Tia, this is happening this week, but I don't know if that's going to be, is it going to be too much for you? It might not be. I don't want to assume. And I'm like, praise God for those kind of people. Or if you have, I think one of the hardest things is pregnancy announcements. And that's hard when you're the person grieving, because you don't want to be the one to take away other people's joy, and make them feel your burden. But at the same time, it's painful. So then what's the best way to manage that? I think that's one of the main things for me, because I've had everybody do everything with me, all sorts of things, call me, video call, text message, in person. And honestly, the in person, the phone call, the video call, they're the hardest ones, because you don't even have a moment to just process how you might be feeling. So one of the biggest advices, I think, if you have wonderful news to share, even if it's, my sister's having a baby, or even if it's not yourself, is maybe pause and think what might be best for that person, because I know they've had a loss. I know it doesn't mean that they don't love me, but it might be sensitive for them, because I've had those 3 wonderful friends who's texted me and said, Tia, I'm sharing this by text because I know this may be painful for you. This is a situation. And I have felt so connected to them that I was interested in their pregnancies. But then I've had friends who were a bit offended maybe because we didn't want to do it person to person, or I've assumed that if that is what you want to talk to us about, do you mind telling us by text message? And it's actually kind of, not, I wouldn't say ruin friendships, but caused like a bit of friction. And then I've had a bit of a distance with those people because it was maybe they are pregnant when I just lost one. So that was hard for me to kind of deal with. But the ones who actually paused and considered that it might be a difficult thing for us, that I appreciate a lot. So even if with our ministry, everything about our ministry is how can you support someone, or maybe you can gift somebody one of our boxes. If you've never gone through it, maybe you can just show someone that you're actually thinking of them. This isn't going to be the same for everybody, to be honest, because I've had that experience. I've had the experience where I've thought of mothers on Mother's Day and said, I'm thinking of you because I know today may be a bit hard. I've maybe sent them a card and it actually got received in a really bad way where they didn't appreciate it. They thought it was quite insensitive. And that's probably the small majority.
Right.
But most people, just to be remembered on Mother's Day or Father's Day as a man, like my husband has this guy who reaches out to him at the same time at our daughter's anniversary, and he's just so blessed that another man would even think of him, because it's usually the women that gets thought about, not the men. So I think just considering special occasions, if you knew, you don't have to remember the date, but if you know, it was around December that person lost their baby, maybe just check in. You don't even have to talk about it. I know what someone's talking about when they say, just checking in, thinking of you guys in this time. And you think, wow, you don't realize how grateful that is when everyone else forgets about you or assumes you're just doing well. Just that one text, that one phone call, or that little gift. Like we had so many gifts that I didn't think would even mean anything to us. If you've named your baby, little gifts where people have put the name of our daughter on it, and you just think, that you wouldn't think about. Those things I think have really blessed us. But I guess, again, that doesn't work for everybody. So it's, I guess, understanding and having those conversations. Is this something that you would want our support with? Because if it's not, please do let us know. Then you know not to do those things. But most people that I've come across, they feel very blessed when someone just remembers and thinks about them, especially on those difficult occasions like birthdays, baby showers, christenings. So just being thoughtful, I guess.
That's good.
I think it is an interesting one because when we experienced it, I'm like a feeler, and I can kind of take on other people's feelings and emotions. And one of the things that when I was going through it, I felt awkward for other people, feeling awkward for me, and not knowing what to say. And I could really feel it. I think that's actually one of the reasons I put this pressure on myself to be okay, because I felt uncomfortable for other people having to be around me, especially in the very early days, because I'm thinking in my head, you don't know what to say to me. You don't really know how to act. You don't really know what to do. Not everyone, but I'm kind of preempting that for them. And I think it is, people want to do well and they want to do right. And so I think, there's this kind of misconception. Some people think, you might want space and to withdraw, and then others obviously go in and,
And I think communication comes into that. I've learned, I didn't learn because I had this epiphany myself. This was through therapy. But I've learned that communication is everything. I've had people who've gone through a loss and they're like, I'm so alone. And I'll ask them a question that was asked to me. But have you spoken to anyone? And they're like, what do you mean? I said, okay, you feel very alone. But have you reached out to your church and said that you're struggling? Have you reached out to your friends and told them how you're really feeling? Or are you replying to people and saying, I'm okay, thank you? We have a responsibility for ourselves to speak up. I've learned this. And if we don't communicate and we don't express what we're going through, people will have assumptions. But then we have this automatic default that nobody cares, nobody's there for me. But we have not communicated the grief that we're going through for other people to understand. And in other ways, we rob people of their blessing. That's something that my pastor said to me a long time ago. If you don't let someone help you, you rob them of their blessing. Don't be a blessing robber. And I'm like, I don't want to be a blessing robber. Why do I want to be the only person that blesses other people? Shouldn't I be letting people bless me too? But how can people bless if I don't communicate? So I've had to do that by going from the person that says, I'm well, thank you, well, thank you, to turn around saying, honestly, I'm having a bit of a tough time at the moment, but God is good. He's seeing me through, making sure God always gets the glory, but making it very clear that, I'm struggling too, because what happens otherwise, especially if you're a believer, people go, well, what is it with me that I find this hard? But that person seems to be handling it just well. Right. Maybe I'm weak in faith. Maybe I don't believe in God enough. And then we're causing people to stumble. So I've had to learn by opening up. People go, oh my goodness, you feel that too? Or you cry? Like someone saw me cry and they said, Tia, in like 10 years, I've never seen you cry. They thought it was great. And I was like, it's a bit weird that you think it's great that I'm crying. They were like, no, I didn't know you could feel because you always just deal with things. And I'm like, well, clearly we don't, because clearly I might really struggle with baby loss and another person might handle it so well, but they might struggle losing a sibling. So we all have something in our lives that just really hits us. For me, it's been baby loss. I've overcome childhood trauma. I've overcome a troubled teenage life. I've overcome being a teenage mother. And I handled those things like it was nothing. And then I experienced baby loss and I'm like, oh my goodness, I need help. I need therapy. That's the first thing my husband did. When he saw how bad it was, he found me a therapist and he was like, okay, we're going to get you help. And that was the best thing he could have ever done. I would never have said yes to therapy before experiencing baby loss. So I just think it's going to be different for everybody. But I think communication is key.
I love that.
And out of all of your experience of therapy and friends and community, you've created this beautiful devotional to help other people. And we've got a couple of copies down here. Do you want to just talk us through, like, the heart behind, creating this beautiful devotional?
Yeah. So even just from the cover, so the big butterfly stands for our daughter Faith. Then all these other butterflies signifies all the other losses that we've had. And I've always found butterflies quite fascinating. And even though it doesn't really have a faith correlation, it's something that can be so ugly to begin with. And I don't mean that in a horrible way. I'm sure people find butterflies and cocoons beautiful. But I find something so not so pretty can become something so beautiful. And in my case, I discovered there was hope and healing to be found in God. I've always had a great relationship with God, not from my early 20s, should I say, but not until I experienced grief. And this devotional was every emotion. There's a 14-day devotional, and that's 14 emotions that I've dealt with in baby loss. When my friend told us we'd experienced all those things, I didn't think she was correct. After I lost my daughter Faith, I thought life could never get any worse than that. That was the worst. And then I've experienced so much more since then. And I think finding hope in healing is realizing that there is a God, even if things don't go our way, because God is not the author of our pain. He's the author of our healing. He's the one that gives us hope. And hope is everything. If we don't have hope, we have nothing. So this is just 14 emotions that I've dealt with during loss, from anger, envy, from jealousy to frustration. And then I've ended it with the good. I found hope in it. I found healing in it. I found joy in the midst of it. And I've just included all the scriptures that's helped me, included how I felt like God walked me through those painful emotions and seasons. And it's got like a bit of a journal in there so people can put their own emotions down in it. And the whole point of it is to help someone else going through the same situation to find hope in healing after baby loss, and to know that hope in healing is found in God. It's not found in things. It's not found in exercise, even though those things help. It's not found in having a drink, even though those things can numb your feelings. It's not found in going to your friends, because your friends go home once they leave you and leave you with your feelings. I realized the only thing that could bring me hope was staying rooted in my faith, because everything else was fleeting. Everything else I tried, once I left the fitness or once I went for a swim, I'd come home and I was left with that deep pit of grief. So my hope and my prayer is that people read this and it just gives them a 14-day kind of thing of, okay, every emotion I feel is valid, but here's how I can run to God with that anger. Here's how I can run to that with that envy. What does the Bible say about it? Because I needed that. I needed to be reminded, okay, this is how I feel, but what does God say? Does God say anything about jealousy? Yes, he does. So instead of feeling guilty because now I'm envious or jealous of seeing someone else having a baby, God talks about jealousy. And what does he tell me to do? Not to run with it. He doesn't want me to feed it. It's okay for me to feel it because it's an emotion, but I'm not to live by my flesh. I'm to live by my faith. So I hope that it takes people from their feelings to faith.
That's amazing. That's beautiful.
Thank you.
Just before we wrap up, I guess I would love to just ask, what would you say to the person that's kind of in the season of waiting? I think healing can be tricky, especially when you've lost, but you're still hoping.
Yeah.
Most people that have lost a baby probably are going to try or want a baby. And so there's this tension of this season of waiting. What would you say to the person that's in that season of waiting right now, that wants to heal, but they're still waiting for their breakthrough, all that kind of thing?
I think the first thing I'd say is they're not alone. It feels like such a lonely, isolated journey. And I feel everyone's journey is different. So we can relate to grief, but we can't understand each other's pain or experiences. So I've had to learn that just because I've experienced loss, I can't know what that person's feeling. So even though in our flesh, we're very much alone because we're all in the same storm, but we're in different boats. Like, for example, I can't relate with the ectopic pregnancy, but you're going to be a blessing to another woman who has gone through that. So we all have different experiences, and someone else can come to me and say, Tia, I've had an early loss, and I can connect to that and relate to that. So even though we feel alone, we're not. Because God is with us every step of the way, and God sees. He sees every ugly tear. So he sees every prayer that we cry out, that we don't even say out loud. And it's also understanding that waiting's different. So it's okay if your waiting looks different to somebody else. I've not met somebody who's I've had 5 surgeries just to try and conceive again. We've had up to 10 losses. So I can't personally relate to somebody, but I know someone can hold me through my grief. But because people can't relate to me, God can. So I think the number one thing for me is they're not alone. God does hear them. There is support if you're willing to be open to it. I felt very lonely until I was willing to let people in. And there will be people. And it doesn't matter if it's one person, doesn't matter if it's 2, doesn't matter if it's a whole army. There will be people. If you're in a good, faithful church, there will be a church to support you. There will be counseling if you need it. But we have to be willing to be responsible for our feelings. So even if it's feeling comfortable to reach out to someone online, that's okay. You don't have to face-to-face speak to someone. But you also don't have to suffer on your own. I suffered alone, and that's painful to go through it by yourself. And I think if it's a couple who's really struggling through it as well, is to not let the enemy get in and cause a separation. One thing I felt like, me and my husband have always been quite individual when we go through stuff. He deals with his stuff, I deal with mine. Through loss, that's how we knew God was in control, because we were so connected. He was willing to listen. I was willing to listen. He never made me feel like I couldn't cry. I don't make him feel like he don't cry. But we've learned we have to communicate. If that's one thing my therapist said, communicate and find what works. For me, breath prayers work, worship works, prayer works when I don't feel like it. I don't just run to God when I feel like it. I do it when I don't feel like it. When I'm angry, I'll put a praise and worship song on and I'll be stomping around the house. And by the time I'm singing, I'm like, okay, you have to be willing to heal even though you don't feel like it. But I think another thing is it's okay if it takes time.
Yeah.
Because for everyone it's different. I've been in this journey since 2016. I still cry probably every day, or sometimes every other day. Sometimes I don't cry and I'm like, whoa, this is a good day. But I feel like it's okay to not be okay. It's okay if a friend sees you crying. You don't have to have it all together. It doesn't make you weak. Doesn't mean you're weak in faith or you're weak as a person. It's a beautiful thing to be able to grieve something that meant a lot to you. So don't rush the healing process. Yeah. And I don't mean sit in it and dwell, but I mean let yourself run to God with the pain. Because if you suppress it, you're going to delay your healing. And I know this is going on, but I actually had a woman reach out to me back last year. Her mother lost a baby 20 years ago and she never grieved. She had 20 years ago, it wasn't something you ever talked about. So she asked if we could give one of our boxes. So she got a box to give to her mother. Her mother said it was the first time she cried in 20 years because no one ever asked her anything. No one ever, and she said, I've carried this pain for 20 years. And just to know her daughter even considered, she said, 20 years I've been grieving, and 20 years to know I was okay to talk about it, but I couldn't because I just suppressed it. So talking, knowing that you're not alone.
For people listening, where can they get one of these? Where can they find out more about Faith in Heaven, your ministry?
Yeah. So the boxes, right? I don't know if you guys have experienced it, but when you go into hospital and you do lose, you get given these boxes from all these wonderful different charities. It could be a bear, it could be a box. When we were given a box, I remember thinking how wonderful it was, but I was like, there's nothing really substantial in here that could bring us healing. So we created a box with prayers, scriptures, resources, just faith-based hope to give you. And then we've got our devotionals and another devotional in there as well that's not written by me. And it's just to give people that little bit of comfort and point them to God. So Faith in Heaven, so it's faithinheaven.com. Okay. Instagram, it's Faith in Heaven. TikTok, it's Faith in Heaven. My social media is Live Well with Tia. So I do daily Bible studies for women based on loss as well. But these are purchased through Faith in Heaven. I'm going to be sharing it this week, actually, so promoting it this week. But they're not just for people who's had a loss, it's like what you said. It's if you know somebody or if you just want to know the emotions of what it feels like to go through loss, to support somebody, it's equally a comforting book to get.
Incredible.
Well, thank you so much for coming on the Young Cubs Parenting Podcast. I know this is going to help so many people, and let's just keep having that conversation and
Thank
move
you,
towards
guys.
healing. Thank you,
I
Tia.
appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Tia.
Thank you.
Well, that's the end of this episode. Thank you so much for listening. We really hope that has helped you. If you do know someone that has experienced baby loss, or like Tia just mentioned, is in that waiting season, or you just want to know what those emotions actually feel like on behalf of someone else, I really encourage you to check out her journal, check out her website, share this podcast. If you think that this episode is actually going to help someone in this season, really encourage you to share it with them. Thank you so much for listening, and we'll see you next time.
See you.